I'm a son of Alphaeus. I'm also a brother of Levi, also called Matthew. But you won't hear much about that relationship. When Levi took his tax collecting job with the Romans, we parted company. My own brother! How could he betray his flesh and blood for money? Death to the Romans, I say. We were a strong nation, but now the tyrants have their heavy feet on our necks. How can Levi cooperate with them? You may ask, if you and Levi feel so differently, why are you both disciples of Jesus? Well, Levi, he is a changed person. As for myself, it is said the Messiah will restore the kingdom. And that is why I have joined Jesus. He is hailed as the Messiah. Now, Levi and I, we still have our differences. Sometimes even coming to blows. So Jesus called us together and he said, you are brothers, but you act like enemies. Remember what I told you. It is better to turn the other cheek or walk a second mile with one's adversary. Ashamed. We embraced. And we are now working together to bring the kingdom of God to earth. But it is not easy for me. I still want to put on a sword and follow a leader to battle against the Romans. How's this situation going to turn out? If Jesus is taken prisoner by the Jewish authorities of the Romans, what should we do? Slink away? Hide? No. Gather friends together and rescue him. If Jesus is put to death, as he says, should we offer ourselves to the murderers too? My question: how can death serve the cause of the kingdom?
Zealots were fighting me. I am Simon, not Peter, and I was a zealot. Looking for a leader, I decided very soon that Jesus was not going to be the fierce crusader that I had hoped for. But I was so taken with his gentle ways and love that I did not want to break away. My former violence seemed very hateful and crude. So I changed. That is, until I confronted a crisis. A new disciple had joined us. I had seen this Levi before, he sent a spasm of rage through me. He had been a tax collector, working for the hated Romans, bleeding his fellow Jews of their hard-earned money. He was a publican, a robber, a thief. Oh, we zealots, we find dark alleys and sharp knives work wonders for such traitors. The others, they sensed my hate for Levi, now named Matthew. The master spoke to me. He said, Matthew is one of us now. He has changed his ways and repented. I have seen your clenched fists. You must change and repent too. Come with me. As I followed Jesus in the darkness, I sensed a third person with us and quickly drew back. It was Matthew. Jesus fell to the ground and pulled us down beside him. He prayed aloud for Matthew and me. And as his words rose in the air, it seemed as if the warm arms of God himself reached down to hold us close. I wept. Matthew and I walked back down the hill, side by side. Our differences, they seemed to fade. We became friends. A miracle made possible only through the love of God and of Jesus.
Levi. And I'm a tax collector for the Romans, collecting taxes to support the soldiers, the officials, and the roads that must be built. I had to collect taxes on the use of the marketplace, the highways, even those pesky mules and camels that were passing by. There was almost a tax on breathing. I was not a popular man. I was cursed, hated, despised, considered a criminal. I was even shunned in the synagogue. Money is poor comfort when one is friendless. From my office, I could see this man, Jesus. Once he stopped nearby to speak to the crowds. No one was turned away. I wondered how Jesus might treat me if I were to go to him in proud and anguish and self-pity in my worthless and empty life. It was then that I decided to give up my job as tax collector. But it wasn't that easy. I didn't have any other offers. Jesus stood in my doorway one afternoon. He said, Levi, I have been watching you. Yours is a miserable life. You cannot change things by returning hate for hate. Follow me. I promise you a happier life. Without hesitation, I went with him. Jesus came to my home that day. Did you hear what I said? The Son of God came to my home. I invited my fellow tax collectors. We had a great feast. That was the turning point in my life. Jesus gave me a new name, Matthew, which means the gift of Jehovah. What a change. And after I had been an agent of the devil, he taught me that money should no longer be first in my life, and that hate cannot and it must not be fought with hate. Jesus said, "Seek first the kingdom of heaven, and the rest will be added to it." I wrote that down. With his encouragement, I have written down many things for future generations. Jesus called them the gift of words.
That's good.
My name is Andrew. I am a fisherman from Bethsaida, the Sea of Galilee. For months, I've been following this man, Jesus. Sometimes, I wonder why I gave up helping support my family to follow a traveling preacher. My brother Simon and I left our nets to go and live with Jesus. Sometimes I do not fully understand the things he says.
Right?
Sometimes my understanding flounders like a loose fish in the bottom of my boat, slippery to pick up and very hard to catch. But I have learned some things from the things that he does. He loves the poor. He heals the sick. And he feeds the hungry. I was the one who found the lad with the 5 barley loaves and the 2 fish. With these, I saw him feed 5,000 people. And we had food left over. A miracle indeed. Jesus used our boat to escape the crowd, stopping a short distance from shore. From there, he told the parable of the sower of seeds. Some of the seed took root in me, I think. Now I know why I left my family to follow him. It is because I found out that people were more important than fish. It is because helping others is a way of serving God. And I have found that this Jesus must surely be the Messiah, of which we have waited for so long. When I first met Jesus, I asked him, "Where do you live?" He said, "Come, follow me and I will show you." I have followed this man Jesus, and he has indeed told me where he lives. He lives in the hearts of the people, and he lives in my heart too.
I am Philip from Bethsaida in Galilee. I am of Greek ancestry. Simon Peter and Andrew are friends of mine from back home. We listened to John the Baptist when he told us Jesus was the one. I decided to follow. I traveled with the Master and watched him perform many miracles. He made the lame walk, the blind see. Those who were dead lived again. Oh, Jesus had a way to realize what was hidden from others. Once, a frail woman struggled through the crowd, reaching for Jesus. Just as she touched him, he turned. "Woman, your faith has made you well." She walked away healed. It was I who was with Jesus when some 5,000 gathered to hear him speak. At mealtime, he asked me, how would I feed them? Well, I told him, it would take all of us an entire year to earn enough for just one little piece of bread for each person. Then Andrew appeared with a lad, and they brought 5 loaves of bread and only 2 fish. But with that, Jesus blessed this meager meal and fed the multitude. And we had 12 baskets full left over. Jesus often talks about God as the Father and spends much time in prayer. I ask, how can I know the Father? Jesus replied, after all I have done, after all I have said. Philip, after all that you have seen, do you not know who I am? He who has seen me has seen the Father. Do my works not prove this? Startled and rebuked, how blind had it been? How dense? For months, I watched and listened to Jesus. I seen, but did not see. I heard, but did not understand. I witnessed what he had done and still demanded proof. I demanded proof. More proof of the one who is God himself.
I'm the treasurer of this little band of disciples.
Judas Iscariot is my name. I have a great deal of experience in finance. Jesus and the others consider me honest, trustworthy. I have a very advantageous position. But there's little else I like about my job. All the other disciples are Galileans. I'm a Judean. They're a little clique. I feel snubbed. Oh yes, when they want money, they're all smiles and chumming at me. I joined the disciples because I saw that Jesus was becoming a very popular and influential man. He was being called the Messiah. The Messiah is to lead the Jews to freedom and restore the kingdom. If Jesus becomes a leader, maybe even a king, I can be made national treasurer. Strangely, the master refuses to accept this role. How can I make Jesus change his mind? I talked to Simon Zelotes. He's a Jewish patriot. He's willing to fight for his country. Simon thinks that maybe the people who have flocked to Jesus might join ranks with the Zealots and together overthrow the Romans. I tried to talk to Jesus, but he would have none of it. Those who live by the sword will die by the sword, he replied. The kingdom you are hoping for is not my kingdom. How can I make Jesus see the great possibilities of my plan? What if his life were to really be threatened? Faced with arrest and death, would he change his mind? Maybe then he would take on the role of a real Messiah, and with all the power of God at his command, strike down the hated Roman tyrants. I've made up my mind. There must be a confrontation. A crisis. I shall see to it.
I'm Andrew. Simon. Brother Andrew, and like him, I am a fisherman. When Andrew told me he had met the Messiah, I did not believe him. Others have claimed to be the Messiah, so I went to see for myself. I saw him raise the young daughter of Jairus from the dead. One morning, tired and discouraged, we brought our empty boats in from a meager night of fishing. Jesus yelled from the shore, "Cast your nets on the other side of the boat." I objected, but I did as he said. And almost immediately, there were so many fish in the net, and it almost broke under the load. Jesus sure knew his business, even fishing. Jesus also had a way with words. Often the sly Pharisees would ask him questions and then cringe under his answers. Yes, Jesus often flapped them with his words. I want to slap them with my sword. Jesus once aimed harsh words at me. He had told us that he was going to be abducted and put to death. That cannot be, I objected. You are all powerful. Jesus said, "Get behind me, Satan. Do not tempt me." I cringed. I was horrified. Yes, even angry. Sometimes I just do not understand this man. Some people want a ruler who will fight the Roman tyrant. Jesus would not accept this role. He said, "My kingdom is not of this world." Then he asked, "Who do people say that I am?" I knew the answer. I said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." At that, his face lit up. He said, "You are like a rock, Simon Bar-Jonah. From now on, you shall be called Peter." Those words took all of the sting out of being called Satan. And as Peter, I have been known ever since. Like a rock, I shall remain steadfast and strong. Others may fall away. Not I. Not even if I am tempted as many as 1, 2, 3 times. No, I will never desert you.
He said, "Sometimes I just don't understand this man."
I am James, son of Zebedee. I used to fish with my brother John in Capernaum, near our friends Andrew and Simon. Fishermen, a bunch of lowly fishermen. Yet Jesus chose us to follow him. Unbelievable. Now once, when Jesus and all of us were going to Jerusalem, we cut through Samaria. Nightfall caught us in a little Samaritan village. We asked for food and lodging, but were denied. Not even when Judas opened his money bag would those cursed Samaritans help us. John and I were furious. All of us were tired. We'd walked many miles that day. Besides, it's a great insult to refuse food and lodging to any traveler, and they were refusing the Messiah. Angrily, I asked Jesus, I said, "Lord, let us call down fire from heaven and destroy this miserable place." Sternly, he shook his head. He said, "No, you do not know what you ask. The Son of Man did not come to destroy, but to save. You two brothers are as fierce and quick as thunder and lightning." So we became known as sons of thunder. I've tried to quiet my thunder to mild growls, but I get so angry. For instance, with those pesky Pharisees. Once they asked, "Why do you pick fruit and grain to eat on the Sabbath?" Now, Jesus gave the example of David, who ate temple bread when he was hungry. I would have said, because we were hungry and there was no other food. Anyone should know that, unless he just finished a big meal like you. But they persisted. "Why do you not obey the Sabbath laws?" The Pharisees asked when Jesus healed a man's withered arm on the Sabbath. Patiently, Jesus replied, "If your ox fell into a pit and was suffering, would you not pull it out, even on the Sabbath?" Jesus often answered a question with a parable, like that of the Good Samaritan when he was asked, "Who is my neighbor?" Now tonight, he said one of us would betray him. How could any of us We love him. Then he spoke of the chief priest, delivering him up to the Romans who would whip him and kill him. But on the third day, he would rise from the dead? Was this a parable too? Did it have some hidden meaning? Such strange and terrible words.
I am John, brother of James. One day, as we were drying our nets, Jesus came and beckoned to Andrew and Simon, saying, "Come, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." We watched in amazement as our two friends joined the rabbi. We were even more amazed when he turned to us and said, "Come, I have need of you also." James and I stared at each other. That was the most important decision of our lives. We have seen how his love and concern have drawn hundreds to him. Sometimes our mother worries about us. She went to Jesus one day and pleaded, "Lord, please let my son sit at your right hand and your left hand when you come into your kingdom." As the other disciples heard the request, the murmur of talk ceased. I became hot with embarrassment. I raised my arm to interrupt. But Jesus waved me away and said to my mother, "That is something over which I have no control. Only God can say." Then he turned to James and me and said, "Is this your desire also? If so, you do not know what you are asking for. Can you drink from the cup that I am about to drink?" What he meant by this, I did not know. But I did know that I loved this man for his understanding of mother's selfish desires. And I said to him, "Lord, we can and we will." Then I led my mother away, still embarrassed, but understanding her motives. The other disciples were not so understanding. Harsh words were spoken, but Jesus rebuked us all, saying, "Let me tell you that the one among you who would be the greatest must be servant to all." Sometimes I do not understand the Master's words, but I have filed his advice away. Words such as, "Love your enemies," "Do good to those who hate you," "He who would lose his life for my sake, yet shall he save it."
An evil world is closing in around us. I felt that way all week, except when Jesus rode into Jerusalem over the palm branches to the shouts of the crowd. Now that was exhilarating. But soon my spirit sank again. Thomas. Now, before I joined the disciples, I was a carpenter just like Jesus. We loved the rasp of the saw, the smell of the fresh shavings. Oh, Thomas, I'm a practical man, but I'm also very realistic. I've heard the criticism of the crowds. I've watched the thinning of the crowds. Now, when Jesus fed the 5,000, they all shouted wanting to make him king. But soon, the ruffians that were planted in the crowd by the Jewish authorities started yelling, "Beelzebub! Blasphemer!" Now, the master has but few followers, and we disciples. Some of us don't understand the meaning of his word. Some of us are rash. Some of us headstrong. Others of us just too dense to understand the meaning of his words. Now, when Jesus wanted to return to Jerusalem, we were afraid, hesitant. Well, I grew tired of the indecision, and so I shouted, "Let us go, even if we must die." And so we have come. The day grows dark, and it grows darker inside. Our feelings darken even more when Jesus said that one of us would betray him. "Is it I, Master?" we all asked. Simon Peter leaned over and said, "Ask him who he's talking about." I told him, I said, "I couldn't see, nor could I hear, but he must have asked Judas to go buy some food." But when Judas left, he had a mean, angry scowl on his face. What could Jesus mean? That one of us would betray him?